Welcome to the Radiant Visalia podcast. Join us at one of our two services, 9 a.m. and 10:45 a.m. Download the Church Center app or visit our website, radiantvisalia.com, to stay connected with us. All right, enjoy.
There is a heavenly city that I'm compelled to find.
We're in a series of sermons on forever, and it's only been 4 weeks. So if it feels like forever, I apologize. It's not supposed to. It's only been 4 weeks. And I've been asking myself the question, how does the promise of eternal life impact this life? How does the hereafter impact the here and now? And I'm becoming increasingly convinced that the only way to do the Christian life is to aim past it. The only way to do what we're being asked to do here and now is to understand that there's something more than the here and now. And so I've been trying to fix my attention on or set my heart and mind on things above. The problem is that I don't think rightly about heaven, so I don't like to think about it at all. I don't think rightly about forever, so I just choose not to think about it at all. And I know that's the case for some of you as well, that the images and the ideas that you picked up are less than biblical, yeah? The eternal sing-along in the sky, the fat angels, the halos, you got wings, I don't know where you got that, you don't become an angel, you stay you, even on the other side of this life. And so there's a lot of clutter. And my desire was to, I guess, create or present a picture that I believe is painted in Scripture, because I think it's a little clearer and it's more compelling than some of the ideas and thoughts that we have about heaven. And so we have, for the last month, been fixing our eyes on what we cannot see. Looking at stuff we can't look at. That's what we do most weeks here at church. We look at stuff that we can't look at. And I want to read this passage from Mark 8, because it was speaking to me in this process. Some people, they brought a blind man and they begged Jesus to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. When he had spit on the man's eyes and put his hands on him, Jesus asked, "Do you see anything?" He looked up and said, "I see people, and they look like trees walking around." Once more, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes, and then his eyes were opened, his sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. And fixing our eyes on what we cannot see is a bit like this. Fixing our eyes on the unseen is a bit like this. My eyes have been focused on certain things, and as I try to fix my eyes on things unseen, it's a little blurry. Things are, for me, coming into focus. I don't know if you're experiencing this as we talk about eternity, but it's like I'm seeing something. It's not quite clear. It's not quite in focus, but I'm picking up on something. It looks like heaven. I can see something. I can see the movement. I'm excited about what I can see, but I'm not quite seeing clearly. And for this man, his vision developed. He couldn't at first see clearly, and Jesus had to pray for him again that he could see clearly. I see something, it's fuzzy, it's blurry, and it's just kind of the way I feel as we talk about forever. I see something, it's fuzzy, it's blurry, but I'm crying out to Jesus saying, would you bring it into focus? I've been so focused on things that I can see, so focused on things that are immediately in front of me, so focused on what is tangible and physical, and I've lost sight of what is unseen. And this morning we're going to talk about faith and how faith is a decision to fix our eyes on what is unseen. That the opposite of faith is not doubt. The opposite of faith is sight. And if you're having trouble with faith, you're trusting in what you can see. You're putting your faith in what you can see. And the call is to, in regards to forever, put your faith in things that you cannot see. Heaven has been the subject of the past 3 weeks. And like I said, my goal was to paint a clear and compelling vision of what heaven might be like. I've not been there before. So I'm trusting the words of Jesus who has. He's the only guy that has been to the other side and lived to talk about it. So we're using him as a reference point. And I know that I said this and I've been continuing to say this, but I'll say it again. We need a vision of heaven, a clear and compelling one that would make it worth the pain of transformation. Something compelling, something we could sink our teeth into, something that we can really hope in and really anticipate. I believe that the early Christians had this. I believe that men and women through the centuries have had this, right? They've had do you really think that an idea of heaven, that it has, pillowy clouds and plunky music and pudgy cherubs, that's what got these martyrs through? That they were awaiting death and pondering pillowy clouds, a plinky soundtrack, and fat angels. And that's what got them through as they continued to dare, as they continued to step out in faith, as we continue to make personal sacrifices. Is that what they were thinking about? Is that what they were longing for? What is it that they knew that we don't, that enabled them to make these type of sacrifices and take these great steps of faith? That's what I've been wondering. Their view of heaven was that it was a desirable place. And for most of us, it's just better than the other option. Well, what other option do I have? Hell. I'll go to heaven. By default. I don't really want to, but given the option, I'm going to opt with heaven. We need something more than that. If we're going to aim past this life, we need something more than that. I set out to get a biblical understanding of heaven. That's what I set out to gain. But what was so exciting is I ended up with a bigger view of God. I wasn't getting excited because heaven was becoming a better place. I was getting excited because God was getting bigger. My view of redemption was getting bigger. I think, growing up, I feel like I had believed this idea that God was going to rescue us from this planet and we were going to be saved just in time to see this whole thing explode. And then we're going to live in some other far-off place that he had made for us. And I felt like the more I entertained this view, the smaller God got and the bigger the enemy got. That he had done something, tainted something, defiled something to the point where God couldn't redeem it. So he was like, look, guys, we have no choice but to bail. We have no choice. It's like, it's too tainted. I don't want it. We've got to start over. And I think it made a big deal about what the devil had done and the effect that the curse had had. And slowly my view of God was shrinking. And understanding, again, that our future is a resurrected life in a resurrected body with a resurrected Christ on a resurrected earth was exciting. That everything touched by the curse will be touched by redemption. He's not bailing on his plan. In fact, he's going to bring it to pass. He's not given up on his original plan for humanity, and he's not given up on his original plan for this planet. He will bring it to pass. And what was exciting me was not like heaven's getting, all right, we got rid of the fat angels and the pillowy clouds. All right, heaven's getting better. It was like, no, God's getting bigger. God's getting bigger. And it was exciting my heart. C.S. Lewis in the book Prince Caspian the Chronicles of Narnia. I don't want to assume that everyone's read these books, but there's 4 British kids, and they find their way into this magical land, and it's called Narnia, and all the animals talk, and it's ruled by a great lion, and his name is Aslan. And they embark on adventures that parallel the Christian faith. And Aslan is the Christ figure in the story. And Lewis makes a bunch of insightful points about the nature of God and the nature of faith. And in Prince Caspian, Lucy finds Aslan, this is one of the 4 kids, finds Aslan after searching for him for a long time. And she's like, Aslan, Aslan, dear Aslan, sobbed Lucy, at last. And the great beast rolled over on his side so that Lucy fell. Half sitting and half lying between his front paws, he bent forward and just touched her nose with his tongue, and his warm breath came all around her. And she gazed up into the large, wise face. Welcome, child, he said. Aslan, said Lucy, you're bigger. That is because you are older, little one, answered he. Not because you are? I am not. But every year you grow, you will find me bigger. Every year you grow, you will find me bigger. God, I'm coming to you not asking that you would save our ideas about heaven, but that you would save us from a small view of who you are and what you do. You would save us from this idea of a small God who is incapable and overwhelmed. That you would rescue not only this place called heaven, but you would in the process rescue our view of you. That our view of you would get bigger. That we wouldn't gauge success here as a church that, well, the church is getting bigger. Success is that our view of you is getting bigger. We want our ideas about you to get bigger. They're so small. They're so small compared to who you are. We want to think rightly about who you are and what you've done. Give us a huge view of what you're doing, what you're about. In Jesus' name, amen. Is that happening for anybody else? Like, are things coming into focus? Like you're seeing something. It's still blurry, still a little bit fuzzy at this point, but you're seeing something. And is that true for you, that in the process of, I guess, unpacking heaven, that your view of God is getting bigger? Is that true? I'm going to put everyone who's nodding to the test. This is the part in the talk show where I walk around and take questions. Anybody want to share briefly something that's coming into focus, something that's shifting for you? I'm going to hold the mic, so it better be brief. And I can cut you off. Come on, stand up.
Okay. So I think what's coming into focus is what I'm supposed to do in this next year. And that's all.
Great. What does forever how did it help you focus?
How did it help me focus?
Yeah, this idea of pondering heaven, how did it help you? How can heaven help you?
Well, I mean, it got me really excited because it's going to be like missions. And so it's just really exciting because I get to learn about God like in different cultures and so not just in Western culture and from our perspective, and that's exciting.
Cool.
Yeah, because that's all.
Anybody else? Thank you for being brave.
Yeah, I've been thinking about eternity with investments, and I've been really thinking about how we're actually living here, and like Jesus said about producing eternal fruit. And I'm really thinking about like how I'm investing my time, my money, and I'm actually getting excited because I'm starting to believe that I don't know, the life is going to be more real, and it's not like this abstract thing, but there's actually going to be work and fun, and I'm just excited to invest into that for eternity and be rewarded eternally for that. And so I've been pondering that for a while.
Cool. I care about that. Here. Come on.
I'm a senior in high school, so I don't know if any of you understand, but my whole life's ahead of me, and I'm, like, scared.
I don't know what that's like. My life is halfway over.
And so being here and finally coming back to Radiant, because it's been a while, and having this be the series and just realizing that I have eternity ahead of me made me realize that I actually have a purpose, and it's really broadened my faith. And so coming back to this and hearing him say, or hearing you say all this, is just like, what is the point of this if there's no eternity? Or if there's, yeah. And so I'm like, I don't know, help me figure out what I want to do with my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for being brave. Anybody in the back? Is there anyone? I know you came to the back because you don't want to be here, but Becky?
Interesting about aiming past it. You know, our goal is paradise, and occupying till he comes. And this week, I had a hard day, and I was like, what? Really? What is all this about? And I'm thinking, paradise. It's about paradise. And so while I was at work having somewhat of a meltdown, it was like, I can do this because my goal is paradise. It's not about this. It's not about this. I'm occupying. This is my day-to-day, and this is how I'm spending my time. But paradise is my goal.
Yeah.
It's not this.
Yeah.
Here. Good perspective.
Yeah.
Just working past it.
Sure.
Moving past it. It's been
Yeah.
very helpful to me.
Cool.
Thank you. For sure.
So what she's talking about is seeing this life as preparation for the next, not your final destination. And when this life gets freed from all the expectations of your final destination, you're free to have a crappy day. Anybody else have thoughts? You're free to have a crappy day, Steve.
All right.
Steve took the mic, so this could get long.
No, it's going to be really short. I've been thinking about the fact that I spent so many years being concerned about the rapture, eschatology, what's happening, looking at the signs. And, I don't even care about it anymore. I'm just looking forward to Jesus coming back, for us to join him and to live in a real world that's right here, that's been redeemed.
Yeah, excellent. I got time for two more. All right. I trust you. I give you the mic.
You may be sorry. I don't know when, what was it called? History Makers was. How many years ago that was? But I was a parent, and History Makers was a conference where young people who were in high school, like this young person, and Travis, who was in high school at that time, were there. And one young man with wild, curly red hair said something that changed my life. He got up barefoot, and he walked across back and forth, and he said to his peers, if you know that your friends are going to hell, why wouldn't you tell them about Jesus? Okay, this person was our pastor. And our pastor now is saying, if you know heaven, why wouldn't you tell them about heaven? That is growing closer to Jesus. My children are his age, and my eternal things that I always thought were my things that God gave me on this earth, the most important things in eternity were my children. And I have learned through this walk that they still remain my most precious possessions, but God has asked me to relinquish them to him. And I held them so tight. And now I can see, as he's saying, the foretaste of heaven. And now I can see my children who are adults and say to them, heaven is Jesus. Heaven is a foretaste. All the things that I looked like you. I love nature. I'd much rather be on a mountain by a stream for the rest of my life than here, truly. I always thought, how could anything be better than what you've created? It's just a little foretaste, and every day he gets me more excited about what that's really going to be like to see heaven on earth, and then heaven, how ecstatic is that? So I am blessed to have seen many young people, including some that are best friends to some of my children, walk that walk and now say, he's bigger. He's bigger. And that excites me because I want it to be bigger too.
Yeah. All right. So what she's talking about is that some of the ideas we have that you'll exist in eternity in a disembodied state somewhere out there. Those are not Bible ideas. So the Bible idea is that what happened to Jesus will happen to you. And that he will bring his kingdom, the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of earth will come together, and he will rule and reign forever. So thanks, guys. Appreciate that. It's not always true that the more you grow or the further you go, the bigger he gets. It's not always been true for Debbie. It can be easy as we continue to walk with him to trade in the mystery of faith for formulas. What we want is not faith, a confidence, a knowing, a certainty about what is unseen. I don't want that. What I want is formulas, steps, and techniques. I seem bent on removing faith from my life. I don't like it. I don't like faith. I don't like living by faith. I don't like contending for faith. What I want are steps. What I want are principles. What I want are techniques. And I think it really quickly, for many of us, the further we go, sometimes we trade in this mystery of biblical faith for formulas and steps and techniques. And we can put our faith not in him, but we can put our faith in those formulas. And we can shrink God down. And he doesn't get bigger and bigger, but he gets smaller and smaller. And all of a sudden, he becomes just the blesser of our agenda and preferences. He's just some sort of rubber stamp. And so what I'm saying to you is that I would be careful, because I think sometimes getting a grasp on Christianity can just be a means to control God or to manage and manipulate someone who will not be managed and not be manipulated. So it's terribly frustrating. Do you understand? I'm part of the problem, because there's 3 steps, 3 easy steps, not just 3 steps, but 3 easy steps to knowing God's will. And they all start with P somehow. So it's super memorable. But sometimes, and you know this, it doesn't always work out that way. So quickly it's like, well, if I give, it's coming back to me tenfold, sevenfold, hundredfold. What's going on here? And some of you have given and it's not come back to you 7, 10, or 100-fold. And if I pray for my kids every night, they're going to turn out okay, right? And if I stay pure before marriage, then I'm going to have this awesome sex life, right? And we want to reduce this thing to a bunch of formulas so that we can control God. How many of you can relate to Debbie and you have a kid that you did pray for every night, and at this point in the journey, they didn't turn out all right? They're struggling. It's not that easy, and most of us are trying desperately to remove faith from the equation. I don't like it. And God seems uninterested in joining me in my quest to eradicate faith from my life. And I think I know why. The reason that God's uninterested in removing faith from our lives is because when we get a hand on formulas, steps, techniques, we can so quickly put our faith in that. We can so quickly rely on those things. And this is about a deeper relationship with Him. He's committed to us depending on Him. He's committed to us knowing Him. He's committed to us glorifying Him. And how quickly, if we could, control, manage, box, and reduce Him down to something that we can manipulate. And He's not having it. That's not faith. So I want to speak just really briefly about forever and your faith. What role does faith have in understanding the things that I said last week to be true? How do we understand forever, and what role does faith have in understanding forever? We know that what I shared last week will come to pass. We know this by faith. We're contending by faith. We don't just pray by faith. We don't just give by faith. We don't just go on mission trips by faith. We live by faith. Whatever is not of faith is sin. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. We're working so hard to get it out of the equation. It will never not be a part of our life with Him. This faith, which is believing and contending for the things that we cannot see. And it's risky business. Most of us are in a place where we want all reward and no risk. So show me the formula, show me the technique, and show me the steps. Because what I want is all reward, all payoff. I don't want any of the risk. And the invitation of faith is to risk and to contend, believe, hold out for reward. I would love for you, if you would be willing, there's a great passage about faith, one that you've read before. Hebrews, the end of Hebrews 10 and the beginning of Hebrews chapter 11. Let me read it to you really quickly, the whole chapter. Let me read to you really quickly a whole chapter. And I would love for you to hear it. Through the filter of forever. I'd love for you to see this passage in light of eternity, in light of forever. Take a look at it with me. We'll start in verse 32 of chapter 10. Remember, the author is writing to a church that just wants to give up. They're facing persecution, suffering, and they just want to quit this thing. It's costing them dearly. Standing, contending, believing, walking, living by faith. It's costing them dearly. So this is written as an encouragement. Think about all these other people who lived by faith. Here we go. Remember those earlier days after you had received the light, when you endured in a great conflict full of suffering. Sometimes, and he's speaking to this church, sometimes you were publicly exposed to insult and persecution. At other times, you stood side by side with those who were so treated. You suffered along with those in prison, and you joyfully accepted the confiscation of your property because you knew that you yourselves had a better and lasting possessions. So do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. You need to persevere so that when you've done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. For in just a little while, he who is coming will come and will not delay. But my righteous one will live by faith, and I take no pleasure in the one who shrinks back. But we do not belong to those who shrink back and are destroyed, but to those who have faith and are saved. Now faith, this is where it's famously defined, is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. By faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. By faith Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith he was commended as righteous when God spoke well of his offerings. And by faith Abel still speaks even though he is dead. By faith Enoch was taken from this life, so he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. For before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. And without faith, it's impossible to please God. Because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. By faith Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear built an ark to save his family. By his faith he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness that is in keeping with faith. By faith Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. By faith he made his home. How well do your steps and techniques and formulas work when you're called to go and you have no idea where you're going? By faith he made his home in the promised land, like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to a city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. And by faith, even Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was enabled to bear children because she considered him faithful, who had made the promise. And so from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as countless as the sand on the seashore. All of these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on earth. People who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return. If they were thinking the grass is greener back home, they would have returned, but they weren't obsessed with what they had. They were obsessed with what was in front of them. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. By faith, Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He who had embraced the promises was about to sacrifice his one and only son. And even though God had said to him, "It is through Isaac your offspring will be reckoned," Abraham seasoned that God could even raise the dead. And so, in a manner of speaking, he did receive Isaac back from death. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau in regard to their future. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of Joseph's sons and worshipped as he leaned on the top of his staff. By faith, Joseph, when his end was near, spoke about the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt and gave instructions concerning the burial of his bones. By faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born because they saw he was no ordinary child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead to his reward. By faith he left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He persevered because he saw him who is invisible. By faith he kept the Passover and the application of the blood so that the destroyer of the firstborn would not touch the firstborn of Israel. By faith the people passed through the Red Sea on dry land. But when the Egyptians tried to do so, they were drowned. By faith the walls of Jericho fell after the army had marched around them for 7 days. By faith the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed for those who were disobedient. And what more shall I say? I don't have time to talk about Gideon, Barak, Samson, and Jephthah, about David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouth of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. There were others who were tortured, refusing to be released so that they might gain an even better resurrection. Some faced jeers and flogging, even chains and imprisonment. They were put to death by stoning. They were sawed in two. They were killed by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute and persecuted and mistreated. And the world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains, living in caves and in holes in the ground. These were commended for their faith. Yet none of them received what had been promised, since God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us they could be made perfect. It's hard to read that one and miss the point, yeah? I wonder what God's trying to say here. I don't know. I should buy one of those Bible decoding books. Faith is the point. And I just want to make two brief observations. I know that you have probably read that passage before, but I don't know if you'd ever noticed heaven as you read it. Faith is something. There's substance to it. But faith also does something. It's hard to read this passage and not see that faith is not just an idea. Faith is active. We do something. Mark Buchanan has this, I thought this was a great definition or description of faith. Faith is not sticky sentiment or dry academics. It's not an emergency provision for the times we're unable to compile enough hard, cold facts or weave a tight enough web of logic to explain things. It's not the last-ditch stand beyond biology, physics, or psychology. It's not something we muster, a rough mix of sentimentality, nostalgia, and stubbornness, only for the hard times and the dark times. It's more than a flutter in the belly or a warm glow in the heart, more than a nodding approval to a set of doctrinal statements. Faith is sinewy and feisty and vigorous, a living hope and a deep certainty that sparks life into all we are and all we do. Faith is being sure of what we hope for, certain of what we do not see. When it comes to forever and your faith, you need to know that heaven can't wait. When it comes to forever and your faith, you have to know heaven can't wait. It's motivation for today. It's not just a destination for tomorrow. Heaven is motivation for today. By faith, these guys refused to settle. Verse 13, I'll read it again. And all these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on earth. People who say such things, who talk like that, they're looking for a country of their own. If they'd been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had an opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for He has prepared a city for them. They longed for a country. They were longing for a city. Not obsessing about what they had here, but longing for something better, and God was not ashamed to be called their God. I wonder if the reverse is true. If God's saying, I'm not ashamed to be the God of these people who had longing and were believing and contending for a heavenly city, I wonder if he can be ashamed of those who have no such longing, who aren't thinking about this heavenly city, this country being prepared. If he can be unashamed to be called the God of those who are longing and contending and risking, can he be ashamed of those who have no such longing? I take no pleasure in those who shrink back. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. Faith will help you delay gratification. When we talk about aiming past this life, you know that there's a cost to this. There's a delay in gratification. Listen to what was said about Moses. Moses was able to say no, here and now, because he was saying yes to something that he perceived to be of greater value. By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead to his reward. Listen, if this life is all there is, if there's nothing more than this life, don't follow Jesus. Don't. If this is it, and there's no resurrection, there's no promise of heaven, then don't follow Jesus. I find so much people are like, well, he can make my life better. Like he's some sort of additive or some sort of piñata that's going to drop something and just make things better for you. He does not make your life here better. Jesus, I don't believe, came to help you live a better life. Jesus came to help you die a better death. And his invitation is to lose your life. His invitation is to give up. His invitation is to surrender. Not that he's going to come alongside again and just make your life better. Now, I believe that that's one of the byproducts. But there are times where what he is asking me to do flies in the face of what I desire, my comfort. It flies in the face of looking good, that's for sure. And I'm thinking, Jesus is not in my best interest right now. And so I choose to do what is in my best interest. He's not all about your comfort. He's all about preparing you for the age to come. The Bible says that if all we have is hope for this life, we're to be pitied. The Bible tells you that if there's nothing more to life than this life, don't follow Jesus. The Bible says it. If the dead are not raised, then eat and drink, party down, for tomorrow we die. If the dead are not raised, then we won't face judgment. If the dead are not raised, then following Jesus is pitiful. More pitiful than sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Do those things if this life is all there is. Get into that. If only for this life we have hope in Christ, we are, of all people, most to be pitied. Your faith without works is dead. We know that. Faith is something, there's a substance to it, but then it does something. And faith without works is dead. I believe that if you read Hebrews 11 again, your faith without heaven is dead. Your faith without something beyond this life is dead. Because faith, am I right, it does something, but it seems that the motivation to do something, at least for these men and women, was the hope of heaven. That's what was motivating them to do what they were doing. They knew that one day, because of their faithfulness, they would be rewarded. Many of them not in this life. When you think about your faith and forever, you need to understand that the opposite of faith is not doubt. The opposite of faith is sight. Faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Paul says elsewhere, we live by faith, not by sight. The opposite of faith is sight. The opposite of faith is trusting what you can see. The invitation of faith is trusting in what you can't see. I would suggest, actually, without taking the rabbit trail, that we're all living by faith. You ever watch those shows and they like show you what your food looks like under a microscope? You're just like, what? Is that what Taco Bell looks like? The car you'll drive home. It's a step of faith to drive that thing home. It's a step of faith to drive that thing 70 miles an hour. Some of you, it's a real step of faith. I heard the guy chuckle. I don't think you have a choice, is what I'm getting at. If you believe there's nothing beyond this life, that is a statement of faith. And at the very least, you shouldn't look down your nose at the people who believe that this isn't all there is. Because you both don't know. And you're both making faith statements. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. Hoping that what is unseen is going to come into focus. Hoping that what is unseen isn't going to be so blurry. Since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. This word fix means determined, attentive seeking out. So we're determined to turn our attention to the things that are unseen. We're seeking out the things that are unseen. But the word in English is really interesting. This word fix means three things, right? The word fix means to mend. Like I need to fix my kitchen sink. No joke. If there's any plumbers in here, I need to fix my kitchen sink. We've been washing dishes in the bathroom. The second thing is that when you fix something, you fasten it, right? Like you would fix a bracket to something. And then the third definition for the word fix in English, at least, is that you prearrange something, like you fix the game so that the outcome is in your favor. And in thinking about it, I was thinking, heaven is our fix. Heaven is the fix. I believe that when we fix our eyes on not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, there'll be healing. Things will be mended in our lives when we look beyond those things. There'll be healing and mending that happens when we fix our eyes on heaven. The other thing is that I believe that you'll be fastened, you'll be secured when you understand that this life is not all there is. There's a security that will come when you fix your eyes on heaven. And then we fix the game. We do fix the game. We prearrange this thing to be in our favor. Listen, if you believe that there's nothing beyond this life, that you cease to exist when you die, I can understand why you believe that. There's good reasons to believe that. I just think that's a really risky position. From where I sit, I'm going to contend that there's something more, that this life is not all there is, and I risk nothing because I just cease to exist. Now, I know that's not enough to motivate sacrifice in this life, and this might just be me looking for a formula or an equation or some steps to take, but I'm engaging in the mystery of faith. Fix your eyes, church, on what is unseen. Heaven is for us and has been for the saints that have gone before us the big fix. Well, isn't it a crutch? Heck yeah. Heck yes. I'll take 2 crutches through this life. Well, it's just because you're weak. I know. I totally know. I know really well how weak I am. Well, it's just escapism. Great. I hate this place. There are days where I'm just done. And you understand where I'm coming from. Sign me up. Crutches, weakness, all of it. I'm going to hobble on believing there's something more than just this life. I'm going to pray. And you can join me in prayer. Lord, I want to thank you for the people that have gone before us. And I want to thank you for the family that we're a part of. People who, they just dared to do things in the name of faith. They walked it out. They didn't shrink back, and we don't want to be the part of the family that does. We want to be bold. We want to be courageous. We want to be fueled by a really compelling view of heaven. Give us something we can sink our teeth into. Speak to us. We fix our eyes on heaven, and I ask, God, that our view of you would get bigger and bigger. That you would continue to grow. That we would continue to grow in anticipation of heaven and your eternal rewards. I just bless every heart here, every heart that's searching, every heart that's asking big questions about life and the meaning of it all. I ask, Holy Spirit, that you would lead us into all truth. That you would lead us into all truth, and that, Holy Spirit, you would reveal Jesus. And that, Jesus, you would reveal the Father. Show us yourself. I thank you, God, that you want to reveal yourself to your people. You want to speak to your people. Give us ears to hear. Give us eyes to see what you're saying to us. Interrupt our lives. And everybody said, amen. Hey, Lauren Montez has a great word that she's actually going to share on the city. Is that all right? So tune in. Next week, I'm going to ask you to switch services. There's only a 9 a.m. next week. So this week you got charged up. You got an extra hour. I believe in you. You can wake up before 8. You can do it by faith, contending that you can wake up. Come on. 9 o'clock next week. That's all we got. 9 o'clock. There's only a 9 o'clock. If you show up at 11, you're going to Planing Mill Pizza.
Thanks for listening. We want to be a resource for you as you walk with Jesus. So please connect with us at radiantvisalia.com. Until next time.
There is a heavenly city that I'm compelled to find. Though I love the flowers and trees and the smell of the grinding sea and all the beautiful things here in life. And I'm a pilgrim here on the side of the great divide.